Hey everybody, welcome to Government Secrets, episode 62. um, were we going to do it on this episode, this new segment of This Day in History?
Yeah, we're going to do a short one called This Day in History, or sometimes it'll be This Week in History, but for this one, it's This Day in History.
Yeah, so it's new top of the segment thing, because our producer, who shall remain nameless, is like, I don't think you guys should be talking about smoothies so much. And I was like, man, he hates smoothies. I knew he worked for Big Dairy.
Yeah. And I kind of assumed that the smoothie lovers was like 60% of our audience. So I don't really understand why we would go that direction, but avoiding smoothies.
Yes. Somebody gets mad at vegan smoothies. They just, I'm sure there's some anti-vegan smoothie lane in TikTok that I'm missing.
Dude, that is the number one thing to get right-wingers to say they want to punch you, is if you just say the words vegan smoothie towards them.
Oh, I would love to have a fight with the right-winger about that. Just a fist fight. Anyway, so now we're going to start a new section.
Yes, we're going to do it. It's just a short segment. And for this day in history, so it's just a week in history, but this time it's This Day in History. It's November 5th. We have Guy Fawkes Day. Now, a little bit of the history real quick. For more than 400 years, this is an article in the Atlantic about it a couple of years ago. For more than 400 years, Britain has remembered November 5th, right? Remember the 5th of November. But what's interesting is that it kind of has a different meaning in Britain nowadays than it has around the rest of the world. They, and you know, a lot of people may already know this, but they celebrate it as in fuck Guy Fawkes, right? That guy, we need to make effigies of him, and we burn them, and then there's a lot of fireworks and shit like that to commemorate. So they're commemorating this failed 17th century plot by a group of English Catholics to blow up the House of Parliament, with the country's entire political establishment and reigning Protestant monarch, King James I, all inside. And it was called the Gunpowder Plot of 1605. The plot was revealed to authorities in an anonymous letter during a search of the House of Lords in the evening of November 4th. Guy Fawkes was discovered guarding 36 barrels of gunpowder, which is enough to have reduced the House of Lords to a pile of rubble. And then he and the conspirators fled. Well, he was arrested there. The conspirators fled. They eventually caught them. Several made a stand while they were being pursued by the sheriff. And at their trial in January 1606, 8 of the survivors, including Guy Fawkes, were convicted and then hanged, drawn, and quartered, which seems like overkill. Like, I think that
they really went over the top back in the day.
I think that's where the word overkill actually came from. It's like, he's dead already. No, he literally, you broke his neck with the first thing.
Yeah.
The pulling his arms off achieves
stop
nothing.
Breathing. It's over. Like, he's done. Like,
then they had to be, no, he could still, you never know. You never know with these guys.
You never know.
He could, I dare say he could still be going. He could still be breathing.
If you've ever seen a Halloween movie, you know that he might not be dead, and unless you see, he might come back to life.
That's true. They thought a lot of them might go full vampire. And so if you pull off their arms and legs, then at least they're not going to run after you very quickly. They can turn into a vampire, but it's really a kind of a wiggle. It's just a wiggle towards you.
Well, getting back to Guy Fawkes, one of the things why it's been brought back to life was the V for Vendetta. First was a graphic novel series that came out in the 80s that Alan Moore did, which was really going into how Britain had become a police state, a totalitarian state, and it painted this dystopian future. It was an amazing graphic novel series that came out. They made it into a movie in about, I think, 2005.
Okay, humble bragger. I read the book. I get it. Okay.
I used to have a podcast called Comedy Film Nerds. So there's really, all I did was talk about shit like this. So, yeah. And then they made a movie that changed some of the stuff from the graphic novel. But again, the Guy Fawkes mask was heavily used in that movie,
right,
which then has been kind of co-opted by certain activists
Right.
Some hacktivists have started to wear it, and
right. It became a big thing also during Occupy.
Right.
But anyway, even despite the fact that it's been co-opted by some certain groups, still, I feel like, for me and a lot of Americans, and I can't speak to a lot of other countries, but most people view Guy Fawkes as this kind of like awesome anti-government, anarchist. Whereas the celebration, the reason the government of Britain was okay in the first place in having a legit holiday for 400 years was like, let's celebrate killing this guy who was gonna blow up Parliament. So they're kind of trying to achieve the reverse, and now he's become like a hero.
Now they're like, boy, too bad he didn't succeed. And the British government's like, no, we're happy we killed him. It's like,
no, stop. They're like, please stop celebrating. No, you're supposed to hate. He's the bad guy.
Blowing up Parliament's a bad thing with everybody in it. And all the citizens are like,
we're like, but hold on. All of you who are fucking our lives, you're all in there, right? Because I don't. Where's the bad part come in? I'm sorry. I'm just a little confused. I'm totally with you. I'll celebrate whatever you want me to celebrate. I didn't catch where it's bad.
Yeah, I can't put my finger on it. So, and I think, especially in America today, we would never need somebody like Guy Fawkes because we have a thriving democracy where people are represented and their needs and wants are heard, and a handful of ruling elites don't run the country. So I feel like we don't probably need it any. You know what I mean? Like,
I absolutely agree, and I think you didn't even need to say that. I mean, of course, I don't understand why you thought that needed saying.
Good point. Good points all around. So that's what happened on this day in history. New segment, new opening segment, because somebody hates vegan smoothies. Beep, beep, beep.
Because the man whose sour name is nameless hates vegan fucking smoothies. He hates them so much that he will drink a vegan smoothie, but he'll blend up bacon into it.
Just to do it. Just to be a dick.
Just to be a dick.
Just to ruin it.
All right, let's get into, we'll call it segment 2. Sure, why not?
Sure. Or first segment after the This Day in History segment.
Segment 1B.
1 Bravo.
All right, so I'm trying to think of how to word this to not give it away too early. I want.
Spoiler alert! America did something.
I want the
horrible.
Suspense.
The suspense of how America was awful. All right.
Yeah, America only plays a bit of a role in this one. We're branching out into white governments being assholes in general. So
sweet.
In 1884, at the request of Portugal, German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck, best name ever, called together the major Western powers of the world to negotiate questions and confusion over the control of Africa. Hey guys, let's get together and really discuss what's going on here with Africa, because I don't think we've really nailed down what is what in Africa. Bismarck appreciated the opportunity to expand Germany's sphere of influence over Africa and hoped to force Germany's rivals to struggle with one another for territory. That conference, the West African Conference of Berlin, lasted 104 days, ending in February 1885. The Berlin Conference did not begin the scramble for Africa, so we won't act like there weren't white people in Africa before that. Obviously, the slave trade started way before that. But a lot of it was, most of the control, something like 80% of the control by these white Western nations of Africa was around the coasts, within a few miles or, maybe 50 miles of the coasts, because they weren't really trudging through the interior of Africa. So really what they did was get together in this room and literally there was a giant map of Africa on the wall. And they were like, see, there's this whole area that we haven't just destroyed the lives of everyone living there. And if you just look at the map, like there's a lot we're missing because we've only really hit around the coasts. And so the way this article describes it, it says, it did not begin the scramble for Africa. It did something much worse. It established the rules for the conquest and partition of Africa, in the process legitimizing the ideas of Africa as a playground for outsiders, its mineral wealth as a resource for the outside world, not for Africans, and its fate as a matter not to be left to Africans. I mean, let's face it, they don't know. They don't know how to divide up their country. We got to do it for them. I mean, sorry, their continent.
Their continent. We decided, well, and I guess just by colonizers decided, white colonizers decided, we're better. So we're going to tell people how to run their own continent and take all of their people and resources.
Well, Graham, I think you can agree. White people's brain balls just work better. So
yes. Every time I watch a Karen video, I think, yep, white people are better. I think we got it dialed in. We really know what we're doing.
The countries represented included Austria-Hungary, Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Great Britain, Italy, the Netherlands, Portugal, Russia, Spain, Sweden, and Norway were one country at the time, united at the time, Turkey, and the United States. Of those 14 nations, France, Germany, Great Britain, and Portugal were the major players at the conference, controlling most of colonial Africa at the time. You'll notice what I didn't mention, Graham.
No.
African nations or African peoples or really anyone black.
Had no say in governing their own country and continent. God, it's again, this is one of these things I feel like this has happened in other parts of the world too. I feel like we keep telling countries, no, we're going to dictate. Like every time we do a story and it's like, you know, oh, this democratically elected person wanted to give their resources back to the done. Nope. Sorry. We can't let you guys decide. And I love when, especially America, that's supposed to be the pinnacle of democracy, right? And we got to spread our democracy all over the world. You know, we should let people make their own decisions in a free and democratic society. Unless you got resources and trade routes and shit like that we need, then we're going to come in and take everything from you and you're going to just have to suck it.
Well, you got to read the small print in that agreement of we want to bring you freedom and democracy. There's a little asterisk. Most people don't see the asterisk.
Right.
Little asterisk. But yeah, so, and here's the thing. It's like, we all know that white Western nations have exploited Africa forever, for, hundreds of years. But until recently, I didn't know they literally had a meeting. Like they went to a meeting and they put up a fucking map of Africa, that most of which they knew like nothing about, like didn't even know what was there. And they were just like, put a line here, put a line there. There's probably I bet you one of the borders of one of the nations has to do with because Otto von Bismarck sneezed on the map and they were like, well, I can't draw around there. There's some snot in it. So we'll just go around that. Yeah.
Right. I mean, God, this is, of course, prior to this, you and I probably, if you would have asked us, we would have said, well, these countries just kind of individually went there and colonized and took slaves, which is already, that is already awful enough as it is. But no, there's an extra level of awful. They got together and looked at a map and said, yep, we're going to do this. Just like the Nazis did when they got together and mapped out the final solution. They probably sat in a nice room and had nice linens and food. And, somebody brought them drinks where they're like, well, this is how we'll subjugate an entire continent.
And loads of Coke. You're forgetting the loads of Coke.
They probably had bags of blow. Yes. Well, back then we called it snuff or whatever it was called,
But Adolf was whacked out of his mind.
Yeah.
But they literally got together and decided these things. And this is 1885. So this is after the United States has so-called freed the slaves. Clearly our view on what black people were entitled to, like freedom in their own continent and things like that. That did not apply. No. So this article, by the way, I'm getting this from an article on Al Jazeera, a little bit from Wikipedia. They say it was no accident that there was no Africans at the table. Their opinions were not considered necessary. The efforts of the Sultan of Zanzibar to get himself invited to the party were summarily laughed off by the British. Oh, why would we? Oh, that's a good one. He wanted to be involved in the divvying up of his country. I mean, that'd be ridiculous.
Wow. The audacity of that man thinking he can have a say in how his country is divided up by rich white colonialists.
Crazy audacity. Crazy. I mean, that's the problem with Black Africans. Just crazy audacity.
Always. Like, and again, it kind of goes back to like America right now is currently the capital of all evil. But Europe really had a long, rich history of being horrible.
No. Yeah, absolutely. Like Britain is Goebbels right now. And, you know, we got plenty of henchmen doing our work with us.
Oh.
So I know this will shock you too. It was dressed up as a humanitarian summit.
I love that class. It's a classic. It's a throwback. It's old school. There we go.
Still using these good plays today. You know, we just love this book. To look like welfare of the locals, its agenda was almost purely economic. Few on the continent or in the African diaspora were fooled, though. A week before it closed, the Lagos Observer declared that, quote, the world had perhaps never witnessed a robbery on so large a scale. 6 years later, another editor of the newspaper, comparing the Legacy Conference to the slave trade, said, a forcible possession of our land has taken the place of a forcible possession of our person. At the time of the conference, I mentioned this earlier, 80% of Africa remained under traditional and local control. Now, here's something they don't say that I feel like it's tough to even get it in your mind, because when you live within a culture, you don't even see it as like something that had to be thought up at some point. But nations were still relatively young in a lot of these areas. Like the idea of like specific nation states as opposed to peoples and monarchies was still relatively young. And Africa didn't really abide by this kind of idea of nations. They had loads of tribes. I think, actually, I'm coming up on that part. What ultimately resulted was a hodgepodge of geometric boundaries that divided Africa into 50 irregular countries. This new map of the continent was superimposed over 1,000 indigenous cultures and regions of Africa. The new countries lacked rhyme or reason and divided coherent groups of people and merged others that were completely at odds. So you're taking 1,000 different cultures and tribes, you're smashing some of them together in the same country, you're putting a dividing line of a country between other tribes or cultures. It was just complete nonsense to these people. But then it ends up having major repercussions that they're still living through today.
No, there's not still repercussions from this awful behavior.
I'm sorry, you're right. It was fixed in 1994, but still pretty bad.
Clinton's first term.
Yeah. Clinton solved it, I think. Yeah.
It's like how many times have we on this show found some problem or some awful thing that happened a long time ago, and we're like, and it's still causing problems today. Like, we got to get a time machine, Lee. Like, I see no other out of this. There's no other option for us.
I mean, if we live in a multiverse, then we took a hard fork when they assassinated JFK.
Oh God. There's a parallel Earth right now where everybody's getting along and there's no war and they're going to be like
clean water. Oh my God.
Clean water. There's no boundaries. It's all the lyrics from John Lennon's Imagine. You know what I mean? It's just, that's how the world is.
People are sucking and fucking consensually without any boundaries. It's amazing.
So the parallel universe that Lee Camp wants is just some swingers paradise where there's just no, it's just everyone's walking around.
There were a bunch of things before that. I said clean water came just before crazy sucking and fucking. But clean water was before it, Graham.
Okay, but everyone's walking around in a robe or whatever. Okay, I get it, buddy.
So your only problem is the robes. We can make the robes optional.
Just clean water, Caligula. I get it.
Robes are, you know what? I'm saying it right now. Robes are optional. Slippers mandatory. Slippers are a must. Robes optional.
Oh God. I guess I gotta stay in this universe. I don't know what to do. I'm trapped.
So 30 years ago, it's now been 130, whatever, 7 or something. It's 136, I think. But anyway, carving up Africa. And then here's someone's mock-up of basically what they did.
Wow. Wow.
Kind of insane. And here is a somewhat current map of Africa, and the orange is various ethnicities, and the black lines are the white lines are national borders, and the black lines are various tribes. So it's like the country's just sliced through everything.
Oh, dear God.
I think we reached the Graham Speechless part of the show.
We hit it, buddy. What minute mark are we at? 30?
If we just want to take a moment, we can just have a moment of silence here.
Oh, it's God. I really love doing this show, but this moment is always like if you and I weren't making each other laugh, I don't think I could do this show. I really couldn't. If you were like super serious, like you were just like a professor that wasn't funny and was super serious, and so I couldn't even riff with you. I would have stopped the show a long time ago.
You're saying if I was Chris Hedges it right now, then
I mean, God, I love Hedges, love him to death, but it doesn't seem like a cat I can riff with.
It'd be a mess, is what you're saying.
Just like me doing the show with like Bill Binney or Richard Wolff. I don't see any of that being just like fastballs of comedy. No offense to any of the work that those fine gentlemen have done. But I just couldn't. Yeah.
For anyone still trying to grasp what happened, imagine that a group of rich guys you've never met before walk into your apartment and are like, yeah, we've divvied this up amongst ourselves, and we're putting a line down the middle of your living room, and we're going to have other people living on the other side of your living room, and we're going to tell them to hate you because you're a different country. Oh, and your wife and kid are on the other side, so they're in the other room.
And a couple of your family members we're just going to take for labor.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course.
Is that cool?
I mean, listen, I'm not doing all this mapping myself. All right, so we're gonna grab this person. You related to this person? We're gonna grab them, and they'll do the mapping for us, I think.
And by the way, there's oil and minerals in your backyard, but you're not going to get a penny of that. We're just going to start drilling. So, yeah, I'm going to need you to kind of get out of the way.
Yeah, just if you could just back up, like out of your apartment, that would help a lot.
Just kind of leave for good. That would be great.
All right, so the outcome of the conference was called the General Act, and it was signed and ratified by all but one of the 14 nations at the table. Now, this one might shock you, Graham. This one, I feel like this is the only curveball of the episode. The United States did not sign the agreement.
Why? Because they didn't get a big enough piece of the pie?
I think it likely. The only information I found on it was that political dynamics at home changed by the time the document was going to be signed. But I bet it had to do with the fact that they didn't get anything. They're not really listed on this list.
there's no way the abstention of signing this from the United States was done for like moral reasons. There's no way.
Well, because you don't show up to a meeting of like, here's how we're going to divvy up Africa unless you're game for it, you know?
Yeah.
There's not. It's like you don't go to a cracked in and you're like, no, I don't want any. I just wanted to, be here, be in the room, chat with you guys. I'm not going to partake. I just wanted to say hey.
Yeah. It's like the Godfather, the meeting of the 5 families, where they're talking about divvying up the drug trade. There wasn't like one of the 5 family mob guys that's like, hey, you know what? This ain't right. I'm going to just sell Girl Scout cookies.
This seems wrong to me, guys. This seems wrong. No? Am I the only one?
I don't mean to cast aspersions on anybody in this room, but I'm going to walk. All due respect.
Well, I think it speaks to a lot to their goals that the U.S. did not walk. They just didn't sign it.
Right. They just didn't sign it.
But, so here is the what basically ended up happening. Now, it took until 1914 for Africa to become fully divided into the 50 states. Basically, bickering continued amongst the rich white men who were dividing up Africa. But ultimately, by 1914, Great Britain wanted to create a Cape to Cairo collection of colonies, and they almost succeeded with their control of Egypt, Sudan, Uganda, Kenya, South Africa and Zambia, Zimbabwe and Botswana. The British also controlled Nigeria and Ghana, and those are mainly the modern names, not all. They weren't all called that then, but France took most of Western Africa from Mauritania to Chad, as well as Gabon and the Republic of Congo. Belgium and King Leopold II controlled the Democratic Republic of Congo. Portugal took Mozambique in the east and Angola in the west. Italy's holdings were Somalia and a portion of Ethiopia. Germany took Namibia and Tanzania. Spain claimed the smallest territory, which was Equatorial Guinea. So, Spain, they only stole a little bit of Africa. I think they can walk away with their head held high.
Yeah, they were too busy stealing Central and South America.
Yeah. I think you had it right. The U.S. was mainly too busy trying to steal Latin America to really get too heavily involved in Africa. Though the attempt to create a free trade area in Africa, and I love the idea of free trade in Africa, really was a free access to to extract and steal the resources of Africa for white men. That is what they mean by a free trade area. Though the attempt to create a free trade area failed, and it was an attempt to keep the continent from becoming a spark for and a theater of conflict between European powers, it ultimately was doomed. The principle of effective co-occupation, quote unquote, was to become the catalyst for military conquest of the African continent with far-reaching consequences for its inhabitants. To govern, they found they had to contend, this is the Europeans, found they had to contend with a confusing, they're talking about the African leadership, found they had to contend with a confusing milieu of fluid identities and cultures and languages. The Europeans thus set about reorganizing Africans. No, I had it right the first time. They were talking about the West, the Europeans, the white guys, found it was tough to govern, basically rule over land they'd stolen in Africa because it was too many identities, cultures, and languages. So they therefore tried reorganizing Africans into units that they could understand and control. Hence, nations, nations meant nothing to a tribe in Africa. Nations were like, what the fuck's a nation? I've got my people. These are my people. Like, I don't need a nation.
Yeah, and boundaries and, all this other crap that so many indigenous tribes are just like tribal. Like, no, we just we operate in this area and we trade with this people and we kind of overlap. And, it's like we share this hunting ground with them or whatever.
Right. And they know if they come in this area, then we'll fuck them up. And if we go in that area, they'll fuck us up. But this other area we share, like those kind of things were known. And instead they're saying, oh, no, nations are all that matter. And I have a bit about this in my act, how the whole idea of national borders even today is fucking ridiculous. It's like, who drew that line? Who drew that line and said a guy born on this side is different from a guy born on that other side? Like,
Right.
It's complete utter nonsense, but we all are so ingrained with it that like you couldn't even imagine a world without these nation states.
No.
So as Professor Terence Ranger noted, the colonial period was marked by systematic inventions of African traditions, ethnicity, customary law, quote unquote traditional religion. Before colonialism, Africa was characterized by pluralism, flexibility, multiple identity. After it, African identities of quote unquote tribe, gender, and generation were all bounded by the rigidities of invented tradition.
Oh, Europe.
And
you got to figure that Christianity was behind a lot of this too, of talking about forcing everybody's views on this, and you have to do this, and you have to have it's so dumb.
Well, they were all going to hell anyway, Graham. So why not?
Sure, exactly.
I mean,
right.
If they're headed for the fiery down under, then what's the problem?
I mean, the Bible said it was okay to own slaves, so why not?
Yeah. Today, Africa is still seen primarily as a source for raw materials for the outside world and an arena for them to compete over. Conferences about the continent are rarely held on the continent itself, which is fucking crazy, and rarely care about the views of ordinary Africans. The sight of African heads of state assembling in foreign capitals, even today, to beg for favors is basically a reenactment of the Sultan of Zanzibar's pleading to attend a conference where he would be the main course.
God. There's no systemic racism, Lee.
I don't think any of this had to do with racism. Whoa, buddy. I don't know why you would bring that into this. Okay. I went with you on the religion thing, but I don't know why you would say the R word on a family-friendly podcast.
That we're just talking about a parallel universe with sucking and fucking. I get it. That's totally. Yeah, it's like you really, when you do it, I mean, that's why history is so fantastic, because you really see the constructs of everything that's good and bad in our society today. All you got to do is go through history, which Americans deliberately avoid. And it's astounding to see.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Is like, if you know this history, and like I said, I don't claim to be some fucking expert. I learned about this a couple of years ago. If you learn the history, it's like, well, of course, we've been dividing up these areas and stealing and extracting their wealth and resources and not giving a flying fuck about their people for generations. Mm-hmm. So why do we act surprised that now the U.S. is bombing in Africa? Right now we have economic war against Ethiopia and Eritrea, other countries, Somalia. You know, why do we act surprised that that's going on? It's like, no, this is actually a continuation of everything we've been doing for generations.
And not just the continent of Africa, but all throughout the Middle East, we've drawn all these ridiculous borders. I mean, like Iraq is really divided between the Shias, the Sunnis, and the Kurds. And we just, they're all Iraqis. They're all terrorists. We just do this dumb, blind, ignorant, racist, colonial. We apply that thinking to any place that isn't Europe or the United States or Canada or Australia or something. Like we just assign this crap to. And, and obviously we did this here. I mean, this is what we did to the United States. We came here and there was 600 indigenous tribes in America that had different borders, and some of them were warring with each other, but some weren't. Some were trading.
I thought they really liked it when we gave them the new borders that we saw.
They loved it. They loved having their land taken away and being put on reservations and having no rights. Yeah, they loved it. It's fantastic. But it's just like,
is that why they're called reservations? Because they were like, I don't know about this.
Don't really want to be here.
This doesn't sound like a good idea.
And then we did really cool stuff like the Navajo reservation, where they can't like own the land that they're living on because the government technically owns it.
Oh yeah, I mean, we could do it. We could do an episode on some of that shit where they're supposed to be like an independent nation according to our national law, but then when the federal government wants to, they just fucking run over that. They don't give a shit. Like,
yeah.
Here's the last little bit. Despite achieving independence for the most part in the 1950s and 1960s, many will recall that was the era when most of these colonizers were kind of thrown out. Like there were areas of Africa in the 50s and 60s where still they acted like the queen was their ruler. But most of that was thrown out. However, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and this is also stuff we've covered in not just African countries, but in other countries where like the colonizers were thrown out. And then if a new government came in that wasn't favorable to American business interests, that's when our boys at the CIA jumped into and starting cooing it up.
Right. That's what we're doing right now with Ethiopia and Eritrea. Eritrea apparently is the only, and Eritrea is almost like a tiny piece of Ethiopia. It's small. And it apparently is the only African nation that hasn't allowed or at least given some signed some agreement with AFRICOM, the U.S. command in Africa. So basically, the U.S. doesn't want that idea to spread to other nations, and they've noticed that Ethiopia and Eritrea have been getting a little closer with one another. Basically, peace has been breaking out, and the U.S. doesn't want to see Ethiopia also push out AFRICOM and push out our extractive ownership of resources. And so now we have economic war. Samantha Powers tweeted about it a few weeks ago. We're basically starting economic war against Ethiopia.
And we've also been doing it with the vaccine. The entire continent of Africa has about a 2% vaccination rate. 2%.
I think it's up to 4, but yes, 4.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, that was last month's statistic. So we doubled it.
It's doubled, Graham, to 4%.
Wow.
No, 4%. But this is why I really shouldn't get us started on vaccines, but just tiny little note. This is why I'm all for the vaccine, because it has already saved millions of lives. I have a problem with vaccine passports because, like, literally we're putting into place something that just will not allow any Africans to come to America for any reason. I mean, it's massive inequality. Anyway.
Yeah, and the pharmaceutical companies don't want to give up the patent for free because they can't make money off of poor countries.
Yeah, and initially AstraZeneca working with another country like Sweden, I think, but or AstraZeneca is Swedish or something, working with Britain. I can't remember, but they initially said they were going to make theirs open source and give the patent to everyone. And apparently Bill Gates was pivotal in calling them and saying, no, you can't give the patent away. And now they're not. So.
Yeah, Bill Gates has been very public about saying we shouldn't give away the patent for free for these vaccines because he doesn't want. I mean, this is like, I mean, there's a vaccine that's being made in India by the Indian people, and they can't use it. It's shipped out. Like it's just astonishing to me. We're still the shit you were just talking about, how we've been sticking it to Africa. We're doing it by not giving them this vaccine. Yeah. And then, as you say, passports. So we're going to use that as they're not vaccinated. Like it's their fault that the West won't give them vaccines.
Well, yeah, it's hilarious because it's like under Trump, it was called the Muslim ban and it was incredibly offensive. Under Biden, it's called a vaccine passport and it's completely fine. Right. It's the same fucking shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, despite achieving independence for the most part in the 50s and 60s, many African countries have continued along the destructive path laid out in Berlin. Former Tanzanian President Julius Nyerere, declared, "We have artificial nations carved out at the Berlin Conference in 1885, and today we are struggling to build these nations into stable units of human society. We are in danger of becoming the most balkanized continent of the world. Ethnicity," that was end quote, "ethnicity and tribalism continue to be the bane of African politics. Quote, the Berlin Conference was Africa's undoing in more ways than one. The colonial powers superimposed their domains on the African continent. By the time independence returned to Africa, the realm had acquired a legacy of political fragmentation that could neither be eliminated nor made to operate satisfactorily. So,
yep.
Turns out you chop up a people and you destroy all of their traditional and historical culture and religion and traditions, and it apparently has some kind of impact on them. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird when you just completely destroy a place and shake it up and draw new lines. It's just like, it's like going and saying, "Hey, now this is your family." No, I don't know them. Now that's your dad. That's your family.
Yeah. Now you hate half your family is on that side of the line, but you love these people over here that you were that you hated before. Oh, I do. Yeah. Hey, I had no idea.
This will work. All right, dude. Should we move to the next one?
Yeah, let's do it.
Do we have time?
Yeah.
We got time. Come on. Government secrets.
This one's gonna be a positive one, right?
I don't think we've ever done a positive government secret because there's no such thing.
It turns out secretly our government gave cream pies to the indigenous. It was like zebra cakes. They gave out zebra cakes to the indigenous secretly. They didn't want to tell anyone.
The CIA has been going around and breaking up evil drug and criminal cartels and letting people have freedom, giving stolen land back to people. The CIA has been secretly doing that since the 1960s.
Because they're very humble and they didn't want to make a thing out of it. So they were just secretly giving land back to the indigenous.
Yes, they are so. I wanted to talk about the untold history of Obama and the CIA. So this is...
Please, whatever you do, don't say anything negative about Obama. Okay, I'm still a huge supporter, and I think the hope and change is right around the corner. I think it's right around the corner. So
hope and change is coming right around the corner. And the reason why I vote for any blue is because of Joe Manchin and Kristen Sienna. If that's not proof enough of how the vote for any blue helps, I don't know what more you need. I don't know what more evidence you need.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's any blue, but Obama proved that blue is so cool. I mean, blue is where it's at, man. And Obama proved that. And listen, you can't create hope and change in 8 years. All right. So we're just waiting for year number 13, 14.
It's really hard to do hope and change when, at least for the first 2 years of your presidency, you controlled both the House and the Senate. I mean, that makes it really hard. And then, it's also hard to do hope and change when you're dropping more bombs than your predecessor. So there's that. This is, all right. So despite his liberal pretensions, Obama's foreign policy was dreamed up at Langley, which should not have been surprising given his background.
Please tell me they had a big map on the wall of Africa and they sat around. And
he just cut it up. Yeah. It might've been the Middle East first. I don't know. In the summer of 2012, Obama signed a secret order authorizing the CIA and other U.S. agencies to support rebels in Syria seeking to oust Syrian leader Bashar al-Assad, a nationalist who had allied with Iran and stood up to U.S. Proxy Israel. Costing more than $1 billion, Operation Timber Sycamore. Oh, I love a good operation. Operation Timber Sycamore evolved into the largest covert operation since the arming of the Mujahideen fighters in Afghanistan in the 80s. Again, another great CIA operation that worked. There's been no collateral damage.
No blowback. That is our motto. No blowback. No blowback here.
So this is in a meeting about Afghanistan. Obama told CIA Director Leon Panetta that the CIA would get everything it wanted. Because
they really have been hamstrung. before Obama, just nobody was giving the CIA anything. It was all very tight. They didn't have the money. They had to borrow staples from like fucking Starbucks. They go into Starbucks. Can I have a couple of staples? Like it was rough times.
How many bake sales has the CIA had to have over the years? So many, I can't even. I've lost track.
So many.
They've had to have fundraisers. They have the CIA kids going around selling chocolate bars in the neighborhood. I mean, it's really, I feel bad for them.
So many. Yeah. There was the dunk tank, $5 for throw at the dunk tank. There was get a handy from a general. That dunk tank. That was pretty. Get a handy from a 4-star general was actually quite cheap. It was like 25 cents.
Well, I think it was like, it was like waterboard for a nickel or whatever. I forget what it was. Spend a weekend camping trip at Gitmo. They had a lot of fun things. But the New York Times reported in the 67 years since the CIA was founded, few presidents have had as close a bond with their intelligence chiefs as Mr. Obama forged with Mr. Brennan, and architect of the CIA.
It was a bromance.
Yes. John Brennan.
And they didn't think there'd be any broback.
I know. I know Obama's, but his tweets were nice. So go easy. Don't go be so hard on Obama.
That's true. His tweets were so loving.
It was an anonymous cabinet member explained that presidents tend to be smitten with the instruments of the intelligence community, but Obama was more smitten than most. This has been an intelligence presidency in a way we haven't seen maybe since Eisenhower.
Also, I love that. I get that this article is revealing Obama's connection to the CIA, but sometimes we use the euphemisms of the military world because they're there and it's how we learn to speak and think. But I love the idea of the instruments of the intelligence community. It's like, oh, they get to kill people. It's well, could you imagine describing murder as like the instruments? Like my neighbor has great instruments. He fucking kills people.
Well, I mean, it's like a clarinet, you know what I mean? Like Jeffrey Dahmer had some instruments of dealing with some of his neighbors. But speaking of these instruments, I want to bring up this graph from the article. Total killed and total civilians reported killed by CIA drones under Presidents Bush and Obama. Look at the Obama is the one to the right.
So blue is what?
Minimum people reported killed.
So so blue is all told people killed, whereas red is what? Our troops or something?
Red is minimum civilians reported killed.
Okay.
And again, this is the minimum. This is what was reported. And we always know that on the ground, they'll say, oh man, that killed, 40 people. And then the military go, oh, it's probably only 9 or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right, because I remember reading about how they switched it under Obama to start defining any male of military age as an insurgent.
Yes.
Meaning they could blow up, and military age over there is like, what, 14, 16? So they could blow up all the little 16-year-old boys, all the 80-year-old elderly men, and just go, oh, it's insurgents.
Yeah, it was just insurgent. It was a boy. He was 16. It's insurgent.
Yeah.
Like that's what they've always done. And then Biden is doing the same thing. Trump did it. Biden's doing it. It's just preposterous to me. It's some of the other things. Obama's boasting funding for the National Endowment for Democracy, which promotes regime change in countries defiant of the New World Order, and his drastic expansion of the use of drones, as we just showed you in that slide. The Obama administration also backed coups in Ukraine and Honduras, pivoted the U.S. military to Asia, ramped up arms sales to Saudi Arabia, and expanded military bases in Africa. Something we were just talking about in your segment, helped suppress evidence about CIA torture, refused to pursue a criminal case against the CIA's money laundering bank, HSBC, nice, eavesdropped on U.S. allies and a U.S. congressman, Denis Kucinich, who opposed his administration's illegal invasion of Libya that devastated that country, stepped up surveillance and efforts to destroy WikiLeaks and its founder, Julian Assange, and presided over the persecution of a record number of whistleblowers under the Espionage Act of 1917.
That's a fuck of a resume right there.
Yep.
This is all under the supposedly most left-wing president we've had in a generation.
Well, yeah, and it just shows you how sophisticated the propaganda is in this country to keep America split, red state, blue state, and to think that this president's different than the other, because the criticisms from the right of Obama, where he's a socialist and a fake birth certificate, it's always nonsense. The criticisms are always like ridiculous nonsense. It's like they've used COVID. They've used COVID as a thing
because they agree, like Fox News agrees with all of his,
of course,
obliterating people.
Of course, they had no. If any of the news agencies, the big ones, are critical of a president with war, it's never like war is bad. What are they doing? They're not doing war the right way. That's the only way they will. It's like, but most of the time they'll agree with it. Like when you had Fareed Zakaria saying Trump became president today when he dropped his first bombs on Syria. I mean, so that's the only way you can criticize.
And Fareed Zakaria is viewed as this like left-wing CNN host.
Yeah.
Like
total left.
That's the left wing. He became presidential when he dropped bombs.
That's the left. I mean, that just shows you that there is no left here.
Right. There is no mainstream left that largely is allowed into Congress, largely is allowed on TV. Yeah.
No way. And it's because of guys like Obama who targeted actual lefties like Denis Kucinich. I mean, another thing the Obama administration did, they protected longtime CIA assets from prosecution, like Rwandan mass murderer Paul Kagame, waged war by proxy in Yemen through the United Arab Emirates, to which it sold nearly $27 billion worth of arms, provided weapons to drug cartels in Mexico under the Operation Fast and Furious.
Yeah, I remember that. They literally were like giving guns to the drug cartels, arguing that I can't remember what the fucking convoluted argument was, that it's gonna help stop the drug trade or something. It was like fucking crazy.
Yeah. And
naming it after a bad movie. That's what's most offensive of all you've listed. Fast and Furious, really?
Fast and Furious, which started out like 20 years ago, like drag racing over stolen CDs, and now they're like literally going into space and like Fast and Furious 8 or whatever.
If you're brave enough, Graham, and you really rev up a nice car, you can take a ramp into space. I think that's common knowledge. Vin Diesel can do it. Most people can't. But.
Oh. And the final thing, oversaw establishment of a clandestine arms pipeline from Libya to Syria by Ambassador Chris Stevens as part of the Operation Tinder Sycamore. Then there is he has a family connection. Obama has a family connection. Obama's record as president should not have been surprising, given his family background. His mother, Ann Durham, worked for the United States government agencies and allied NGOs, the Ford Foundation, Asa Foundation, Development Alternatives, Inc., and United States Agency for International Development, USAID, in Indonesia in the 60s and 70s, as well as Ghana, Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, and Thailand, and had training in the Russian language, which, with everything combined, made her a CIA's recruiter's wet dream. It's weird that a CIA assets child would be groomed to be president. That doesn't sound like something the CIA would do.
It is weird. And that helps answer a bit of a question I've always wondered, which is, I didn't know better, and I supported Obama in 2008. I thought he'd be different. And quickly it became clear he was no different. But I was like, but how did the establishment know? Because they seemed to also be fine with him. So how did they know he was going to do their bidding as effectively as he did? And I think part of it is what you just read. Part of it is that they knew him in his Chicago Senate days, and he was already, even in the Chicago Senate days, the former Treasury Secretary Rubin, Robert Rubin, was like touting him to people and was basically kind of a mentor, like showing him around, being like, this guy's the next big thing and stuff like that. And so it's like, once you had the kind of check mark from a former Treasury Secretary, clearly that guy had seen enough to know that he wouldn't threaten the bankers. Like,
yeah. And when, and then of course we saw, the leaked memo, the CIA, is it the Citibank list?
Citibank, yeah, picked his cabinet. Yeah.
Picked his cabinet. And so they were like, oh, he'll play ball. And when he said, I'll pull the troops out of there, but kept the bombing going, the defense industry went, cool by us. He
led the transition of like a kind of full frontal war where everyone's like, oh my God, we're at war, to a kind of backdoor war where most Americans don't even think of it as being at war. Like, most Americans hardly think that we're at war in Afghanistan, Iraq, Yemen, Syria. Like, they just don't view it as war, he succeeded in making it something people don't protest against because they hardly believe it's happening.
Yeah, because he did the thing of pull the boots off the ground. So there's no flag draped coffins. There's no, the news channels would do memorials at the end of each channel. These are the soldiers who died today. So Americans are being reminded, oh, wow, we are in a war. People are dying. You get those guys out of there and you just drone strike the shit out of everybody. Well, now Americans think it's over. It's done.
Yeah.
And you had the big celebrations of the soldiers leaving in 2011 Iraq, right? You have all that stuff, all those theatrics to say the war's over.
I mean, we had a mission accomplished.
Sure.
Yeah.
We had, everybody. Bush had one, Obama, everyone had a mission accomplished. So the microfinancing projects that she worked on, this is his mom, to help turn traditional craft industries into sustainable businesses, were designed to better third world masses to the mentality of finance capitalism.
Hey guys, let me show you this thing. It destroys most everybody's lives, but you're going to love it. Just line up right here. This is going to be great. We're going to show you capitalism. It's just for you. It's And if you have a child, you can sell them right into slave labor quite easily. Just step right up.
It's great. Microfinancing. Sound like this thing that's going to help everybody. Durham's boss at USAID in Indonesia, Dr. Donald Gordon Jr., author of Credit for Small Farmers in Developing Countries for USAID, was identified in Julius Mader's 1968 book, A Who's Who in the CIA, as a CIA agent. So she worked for a boss. Another boss, Peter Geithner, who had a son named Tim Geithner. Does that name sound familiar to you,
No way. The Geithner lineage?
Yes. Anne obtained a bachelor's and master's degree in anthropology at the University of Hawaii, writing a thesis which argued that Indonesian villagers were dynamic and could produce greater wealth if they had access to market incentives and capital.
If they just would take a seat on the floor of this sweatshop and sew these sweaters, I think the stars, the stars are the limit. The sky's the limit. Like,
and this is, Obama's freedom fighter mom went to Indonesia in the mid-60s at the time that the CIA supported a military coup led by General Suharto against the left-wing regime of Sukarno. Now, Suharto was a butcher. 2 million suspected members of the Indonesian Communist Party were rounded up and massacred in the aftermath, and thousands more were imprisoned, many for decades. So she was hanging around during a CIA coup.
And that's where he spent his earliest years, right? Indonesia.
Yep. Much of Anne's anthropological consulting field work was carried out in East and Central Java, which provided a hotbed of support for the PKI, including among members of the Javanese Women's Association and Labor Federation. The CIA at this time employed these evil motherfuckers. They employed anthropologists and development workers as undercover agents to gather information on villagers' political affiliations, in which Anne, according to the thesis advisor Alice Dewey, had taken an interest. So here's this nice.
Oh, I learned about this in Avatar. You send the anthropologist in to lay the groundwork so you can get the unobtainium.
Oh, and there's a picture of the mom here. I'll put it up there of just like, this is Anne. And it's just how they get this done. So this is, look, there she is. Oh, she's this nice girl in it's the 60s, and she's a white woman, and she's going to help. And they know how to dress this up so that liberals buy this crap.
Right.
And she was there doing the CIA's bidding. Like,
wow.
It's unbelievable, man. Like,
yeah, I truly didn't know that.
And you think, oh, he came from this history that, this family of activists and people boots on the ground helping out. And just at a cursory glance, you think, oh, wow, look at his mom was in Indonesia, man. She was helping out. What are you talking about? You do a little digging. Nope. All CIA. It's really like, and it's astounding. And she taught English in the American Embassy in Jakarta, which also housed one of the largest CIA stations in Asia. These are all wacky coincidences, Lee.
At least he made her proud. Judging by the things she was into, her hobbies, her pastimes, he made her proud.
She also worked for the Indonesian American Friendship Institute in Jakarta. I love the names of these awful CIA fronts.
Yeah, that's not a very good one. It's the we're gonna call this one the Happy Bunny, Happy Bunny LLC.
It's always like the Freedom Delegation of loving, patriots that fight for itself.
Welcome to Loving Each Other LLC. Totally, we're not killing anybody. No, we're not gonna kill that guy. Come on in.
Yeah. So Durham also worked for the Indonesian American Friendship Institute in Jakarta, a suspected CIA front. One of her closest colleagues, Ad Sesso, had been the leader of the Muslim students during the overthrow of Sukarno. So that's how they could say, and then the CIA planted this within the right-wing media of Obama's a Muslim terrorist, right? Just give him some ties to Islam to keep that argument going. So we're not looking at his mom's CIA past.
We're not looking at the reality of it. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and also the right-wing media fucking loves the CIA and everything in general. So,
oh yeah,
most of them are not going to question something like that.
No. And it's like, she married, yeah. And then Stanley armored, like she just it just goes on and on. Like it just goes on and on. I mean, it's just like it's all these ties to CIA fronts. And
Graham, where were you in 2007? I could have used this information.
I know. It's weird that this didn't come out.
Didn't you email me in 2007?
It's unreal. Yeah. So,
but yeah, just to go back to what Obama actually did, the number of drone bombs dropped is just fucking crazy. I've done some segments on that. His final year, 26,000 bombs were dropped by the Pentagon that year, because he basically said, fucking
unload it,
balls to the wall, drop all the bombs you want. I mean, God, we'll never know how many fucking innocent civilians were killed or had their lives destroyed or lost family members from all these things. Trump even increased that number even more, but like it's a mass murder machine of a kind of unprecedented level.
He ran out of bombs. I mean, it's just like, and they.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
I mean,
literally, they were like, "We're not sure we can produce enough bombs." And by the way, each one of those bombs cost $1 million. So, You think that money could go to something positive within the United States?
Yeah, how many schools? I mean, it's just like, and the fact that like liberals are just in love with Obama, they just don't want to hear this stuff. They don't want to hear this stuff because they just think, oh, it's just right-wing smear. No, the right won't say this either. Fox News is not going to do this story. Fox News is going to talk about this.
Well,
like,
it's rude to show up with all these facts and things. It's just rude. It really ruin a liberal's evening.
Yeah. So she married a guy that was in the CIA. And his job was to recruit people, and then it's just keeps going on. So that's.
So no wonder he loved the CIA. He was making mommy proud.
Yep. Literally born in the CIA. So that's Government Secrets, episode 62, Eye-Opening Evil.
I would say this was our third best ever.
This is our third best ever.
Yeah.
Folks, if you like what we're doing, support us at liberapay.com/government secrets. We're figuring that out. It's working now. We finally got it figured out. But yeah, it's a great way to support the show, and hit the like button and wherever you're watching this or listening, likes, shares,
or smelling. If anyone's smelling this out there.
I know Spotify's got a new smell app, so do that. Give it a positive, give us a positive Yelp review. I don't know, were you in Yelp?
Oh man, I was listening to a Meatloaf album and I just couldn't, because they have a new smell option. I couldn't turn it off. Yeah.
So yeah, support us in any number of ways. We very much appreciate it. I'm doing a show with Ron Placone November 27th in the Los Angeles area. That tickets are available at GrahamElwood.com. And of course, sign up for my newsletter, watch Political Vigilante and all that business. Lee Camp, what are you doing? Where could people enjoy your Lee Campness?
I'm actually doing nothing. I quit it all. Yeah, no, there's a new Redacted Tonight out tonight. So you can watch that at radindiemedia.com. We'll put it up there, but it's also at portable.tv. Just scroll down to the Redacted Tonight playlist. But yeah, check out radindiemedia.com. It's tons of cool left-wing media all there every day. You get new stuff. And if you want to read your news, you want to watch your news, you can click read, watch, or listen. So you can choose which hole of your face you'd like to take it into, which, a lot of sources don't let you pick that. A lot of sources don't let you pick the hole, and you're like, oh, I wanted to take it in the eye holes, and then it's in your ear hole. And you're like, no, why?
Take it in whatever hole you can.
I said face hole. But yeah, radindiemedia.com, and my Twitter's at Lee Camp.
Cool.
Thanks, man.
All right, buddy. Have a great weekend.
Be well.
You too, my friend. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. We are still in our 9th month of demonetization from YouTube. So support what we're doing at patreon.com/GrahamElwood or rockfin.com/GrahamElwood, which is a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. It's free to sign up, and there's a premium level at $10 a month. And for that, you get everybody on the platform's premium content. Myself, Lee Camp, Ron Placone, Jimmy Dore, Whitney Webb, Kim Iverson, Abby Martin, and many, many others. You can also support what we're doing at Venmo at Graham-Elwood. And go to GrahamElwood.com. We have a PayPal button and a P.O. box. I also have crypto wallets, which are all in the show notes. Thanks for supporting what we do.